Bilingual Redditors, what have you heard that you weren't supposed to? I once heard my boss tell his wife in German what he was going to do to her when he got home. It was disturbing to say the least. I was on holiday in Moscow, and in the subway I heard another tourist tell his mate, in my native tongue, you know, when we speak Dutch, nobody here will understand a word of it. It's kind of a code language here. To which I replied, yeah, about that. It's not as effective as you might think. I used to go to lunch with my assistant manager to a Mexican restaurant next door to where we worked. My assistant manager is Cuban and would usually have small talk in Spanish with the waiters. One day he tells them about how he is the manager and I'm his assistant. This conversation gets more interesting when he tells the waiter about what a lousy worker I am. This is when I interrupted to say, in Spanish, that he, my assistant, is full of shit, and I let them know that I speak Spanish. The waiter laughed his ass off, and my assistant manager was very embarrassed. Ah, good times. About 10 years ago I was on a night train, going from Rome to Naples. These two addicts were discussing robbing me with a knife, while I was sitting in the same cabin with them. I told them I spoke Italian, and that if they wanted to rob me, I wasn't going to make it easy for them. They actually apologized, told me they thought I was German, and moved on down the car. Sorry, but here's a not me, but my friend story. My buddy is Mongolian and Russian, speaks fluently in both as well as English, but looks entirely Mongolian. We went to Vegas a year ago with another friend who is also Mongolian, and hit the tables. They went to play poker together. I basically just handed my wallet over to the casino. Anyway, they're at the table with two Russian guys who are speaking Russian to each other, basically planning on trying to play my friends and drive up the bets in an attempt to get their money. My friend hears them and understands what's happening, then tells out other friend what's up in Mongolian. So now they knew they were getting played and decided to play the Russians. Basically, they bluffed their way to winning some money until the Russians left, at which time my friend said to them, in Russian, "Good playing with you guys, take care." The Russian guys' jaws dropped, and then they left. In high school my dad and I went backpacking through the Sierra Nevada mountain range in California. We were in this small town named Lone Pine, which is about 4 hours north of LA. There were tons of German and French tourists there who had been visiting the redwood forests. I speak both English and French fluently, and I overheard these two French girls talk about me in a convenience store. One of them nodded in my direction and said, "What about that one?" To which the other one replied, "He seems kind of dumb, but he's cute, so yeah, I'd probably sleep with him." I thought I would try my luck and approach them about it. In French, I said, "So, I'd like to take you up on that offer, if you're up to it." They were clearly pretty embarrassed and just walked away giggling. I'm bilingual, but none of my stories are good. I love a particular story from my mom. However, when my mom was in her 20s, she was in line at a mall and she heard two Arabic men behind her making fun of all of the slutty American women and talking about her. FYI, she was not dressed badly. She was even super modest by today's standards. But in Saudi Arabia the women cover everything but their eyes. She grew up in Saudi Arabia, so she not only spoke the language, but she was very familiar with the beliefs there. She then turned around and chewed them out in Arabic for disrespecting her and told them they should be ashamed for so boldly acting outside of their belief system at the expense of strangers in a country that does not have the same restrictions. I speak fluent English and German, plus a few other languages where I can speak the basics. I was sitting in a hot tub while on vacation in California. These two German girls came a little while later and got in the hot tub. The hot tub overlooks the pool and the public beach. Since the hotel was on the water, I made some small chat in English when they got in, and they assumed I only spoke English. So they started talking among themselves in German. They started commenting on people that would walk by with all sorts of things. I bet she has breast implants. He is probably her bitch, etc. I was just listening and holding anything back. Then they started narrating this seagull who kept asking for scraps and were making some horrible remarks. "Hey you fat cunt, you're already fat enough. Throw me some food you fatty." They cracked a few good jokes. Considering they were German humor, I still found them really funny. Before I knew it, I lost my shit and started cracking up. They knew instantly. Their faces turned bright red from shame. I just laughed even harder. I then said, "Thanks for the laughs. I'll leave you too. Have a good day," in perfect German. Not me but my girlfriend. She speaks English and Dutch. There have been numerous times that she has been in England and heard people speaking in Dutch about things you wouldn't usually talk about in public. For example, when she was on the bus, she heard two guys talking behind her describing this lump he'd found on his dick. Now, because they assumed no one could understand them, they were talking at normal levels. I was next to her at the time, and she told me, and I burst out laughing. When we got off the bus, we turned to them and said "doei," which is bye in Dutch. The looks on their faces was brilliant. I'm white, but I speak Mandarin and Japanese fluently. I've overheard a lot of things. The most memorable was when I went to the Yokohama Chinatown with my Japanese friends. A group of Japanese tourists and a group of Chinese tourists were in an argument, so my friends and I tried to defuse the situation. While we were listening to each side's story in Japanese, there was talk on both sides about me from both groups in their native tongue. So once we finished hearing each side's case, I told the Japanese group in Japanese the other side's point of view. Their eyes bulged. Then I told the Chinese group in Mandarin the other side's story. Everyone's eyes bulged, including my friends. I didn't tell them I spoke Mandarin too. Apart from English, I natively speak Italian and Slovenian. The first time I brought my girlfriend to Italy to see where I grew up, the main city I showed her was Venice, as I was born there. There was this one time when we had walked all day in the secret passageways of Venice, so we both were naturally tired and a little sweaty. As we hopped on the train, two guys besides us started oogling us too and making fascist comments about us. I wish Mussolini was still here. He would show these fuckers to speak their own dirty language. Note, my GF doesn't speak Italian, but she does understand a little. Blood boiled up until we stepped off the train as I approached them and loudly said, "Next time, you should probably keep your neo-fascist and racist comments to yourself." The whole car heard me and immediately turned to look at the blushing guy, who just replied with a yes. Needless to say, I triumphantly walked off the train while my GF turned around towards the window these guys were sitting at, with a big smile stamped on her face. I'm bilingual, Dutch Russian. I live in the Netherlands. I was in St. Petersburg 2 weeks ago. I have a friend who also speaks both Russian and Dutch. We have known each other since we were 2. Our parents are good friends, so they booked flights to St. Petersburg for the same period. He was staying at his grandma's, and I with my grandma. So we were together, buying vodka at some supermarket. We are talking Dutch together and English to the cashier, just for fun. So, all of a sudden I hear some girls, 18 years old, talking. They start rating us and come to the conclusion that we are quite cute. They guessed our age to be about 19. I was 15 and he 14. I give the look to my friend. By some kind of best friend telepathy we decide that I should make the move. So I turn and say in Russian, "Well girls, you look quite nice too. We can maybe hang out or something." They scream and laugh and accept the invitation. We then went to a cafe and after that to the movies. We still occasionally chat with them. I've had a few of these actually. I speak both English and Dari, and you'd be amazed at the places that you see Afghan people at. One time I was at Macy's trying to grab a pair of Levi 508s, but they didn't have my size in the color. So, in the Levi's area there were 2 women that had the Macy's name tags on that were speaking to each other. As I got closer, I noticed that it was Dari, but didn't want to say anything. I came up to them and said, "Excuse me, but can you check if you have this in this size?" And one of the ladies turned to the other and said, in Dari, "Wait a second, while I show this idiot we don't have what he wants." I didn't say anything, and turns out they did have it in my size, but it was in another spot. Once I grabbed them, I turned to her and said in Dari, "Thank you very much for the help. Her and her friend both turned bright red and asked if I was Afghan and apologized multiple times. In the end they hooked me up with some secret 40% off code, so it all worked out. Thanks for watching the video. For more content like this, please subscribe, like, and share the video and push the notification button.